This is the golden era of the Four Seasons, Part 6. We're here with Bob Gaudio, Joe Long, Demetri and Frankie Valli, hearing their words, their story, and their music. The year is 1968. Musically, a wave of nostalgia has swept the nation, and the sound is getting soft and countrified. Phillips Records takes another cut from the genuine imitation Life cassette album called Idaho and releases it as a single. What did the group do during the year after genuine imitation Life Gazette?
We got ourselves busy in concert and in nightclubs. We've been actually staying on the road a lot more the past 2 years than we had up to that point.
The next group single is released by Phillips in the fall of 1968, and it's another belated record called Electric Stories.
I can tell electric stories that will surely blow your mind. People find that I can tell electric stories very well. Blow your mind. People find that I can tell electric stories very well.
The group was entering a down period when record sales were off, but you continued to play to almost sell-out crowds. Why?
Because I think we've transcended the record act label. You know, too many acts in pop music today are only as good as their last record. But the Four Seasons had so many hit records, plus the fact that we all grew up in the saloons, so to speak, where we had to learn to perform, learn to play to a live audience. So once you're strong in person, it doesn't matter whether or not you've got a hit record going. I mean, you could point out groups such as Peter, Paul, and Mary, and who might have a hit every year or two, but sell to standing room only every time they perform.
Speaking of Peter, Paul, and Mary, this has nothing to do with the conversation, but did you see his album? You know what the name of his album is?
Oh,
Paul and?
Paul, yeah.
That's got to be the best title of the year.
Paul and.
Absolutely kills me. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so like, I think the public at this point, public doesn't look at us as, hey, let's go see them do their latest hit. They just know the Four Seasons have been around a while, do what I consider to be a pretty good show. Never shuck on an audience. I mean, I don't care if we're depressed, if we're tired. We'll never sell an audience short. We'll always really work hard for them. So, I mean, that's really what a person is paying his $4 or $5 for when he goes to a concert. Not to see a particular record being done, because they can hear it a lot better if they put it on their hi-fi, but to see a show. And we believe this, and it really bugs us when we see some of the new acts literally turn their backs on their audience and almost act as if they really, you know, they place no value in that audience. They're the kind of groups that will need hit records consistently in order to stay on the scene. If an act comes along and works up a good show and does a good job in concert or in a club, they don't need hits every 2 or 3 months to sustain themselves.
I think this goes hand in hand with what Frankie mentioned earlier about fans abandoning certain artists who have turned their back on their audience.
We did a concert tonight, and backstage after the show, there were just as many 13 and 14-year-old kids asking for autographs as there were 18 and 20-year-old kids. Well, they can't. Those 13-year-old kids didn't come to see us because they remember Sherry, because they're only 3 years old when Sherry was out. And I'll tell you another thing that's really exciting. When we see some of these kids come into our shows, and I mean sub-teens, if you see a 10 or 11 or 12-year-old kid come into a show and singing every lyric along with us. So it's more than just, I mean, I know they don't remember it. It's something that maybe their mothers sang to them, or they've been hearing these songs on the air. So it's a combination of nostalgia. It's a combination of seeing a good show, of being entertained. It all falls under being entertained. We believe that we should entertain an audience.
Frankie Valli had the next release in late 1968 with a beautiful song called The Girl I'll Never Know.
Suddenly I wake up from the dream I wake up from the girl I'll never know.
was a dry spell from the end of 1968 to the fall of 1969, when, as you said, the group was busy in concerts and clubs. Then the group recorded an old Della Reese hit for Bob Crew's Crew label. What was the story behind this sudden move? Was it an attempt at a comeback?
We never thought we were gonna. There was at that time there were some arguments with the record company, a few little disagreements, and they were holding back on certain things, and we were doing the same. We were doing likewise. So we decided to give the record to Bob. But we thought we had a shot with the song because it's a great song.
That was, we just felt that we contractually could do it, and we did it.
I hear the sound of music, your favorite kind of music, and that reminds me, girl, of you.
Phillips continued to release singles by the group through 1970. Frankie Valli had a single in May called A Dream of Kings.
Yeah, that was a waste of time. That was a financial situation, and it was supposed to be, the song was supposed to be in the movie by Frankie singing it. Contractual reasons, they had a lot of problems, and meanwhile, never got in the movie, and meanwhile, the record was already out. So it was a mistake. Bad timing.
About this time, there was a release on a small New York label by a group called The Wind and a record called Make Believe. It sounded amazingly like the Four Seasons. Was it, in fact?
We'll never tell. Had nothing to do with us.
We found out they were New Jersey boys, so it's possible that we had influenced them, while they were growing up in the business.
I understand there was a group out called Storm that sounded a lot like the Seasons.
Storm? It sounds like us?
It's incredible. We remember once going down to Florida and being called all kind of nasty names because we had reneged on certain contracts or something. And we had no idea what they were talking about. And wound up, it was revealed to us that there was a group in Florida working the South using the name The Four Seasons. I mean, at least these other guys are calling themselves Storm and Wind and every other thing, But imagine this group was calling themselves The Four Seasons. So, I mean, we don't know what's happening with some of these people.
In the summer of 1970, the Seasons did an album called Half and Half, and Phillips pulled out a cut called A Patch of Blue.
Yeah, we thought that was a hit. It was top 40 or 50.
In fact, Frankie had another one in that same time, the country and western thing that
Circles in
the Sand. Yeah. I think we did. I think in the past year and a half we've done some of our best records, production-wise, vocally. It's just that conditions being what they've been during the past year and a half, I don't think the records really got the shot that they should have gotten, and that's what we're trying to fix now. But some of the things that we've done during this last year and a half, some of those things are really good. They're really good records. We're really proud of some of them. All of them.
To Terrytown, everybody knows me there.
And as mentioned, Frankie Valli had another solo recording about the same time, a song called Circles in the Sand.
Circles in the sand, whirling and swirling, that's what I am. She gives me things that I never ever have to ask for.
Your signatures are affixed to contracts with Motown Records. How do they plan to package the group?
Well, we have a situation where they have a tremendous amount of talent up there as far as writing and producing is concerned, and they're going to be doing 8 sides with their producers and writers for us, and we are doing 12 sides of self-contained material. And out of, it'll either be Motown or Mo West, I believe.
What about the rumors that you're planning to quit recording and touring?
I don't know where that all came from, but nobody's quitting. No, in fact, more so in both departments.
We are contemplating moving to the West Coast, based out of California. We've been working out of New York up till now. That's the only change as far as we can see, just changing geography, not changing any plans musically.
And of course, the newest season was Demetri added in mid-1971 as a replacement for Tommy DeVito. Dee, you look familiar. Did you ever work with another group?
The only group that I played with was Robot Combo, 61, 62. No, I was with a trio for about 8 years.
Trio.
Took the whole thing.
Yeah, in fact, right. Dee had a trio, piano, wow. I think a piano, bass, and drums when I think a trio. Dee had a guitar, organ, and drum trio. And we were working in Baltimore County College. And after the show, Bobby went to a club near Baltimore that we had played a few times, and he heard Dee with his group. And he came back and told Frankie and me, I think I found Tommy's replacement. Tommy at that time was considering retiring. So Dee came with us, and then he took his drummer and organist with him, so they're part of our backup band now. Just took the whole group along.
Now a loaded question. Where is music headed?
I don't think really anybody has any idea. It's really a discussion that you can't even discuss. It's worthless conversation because there isn't a person in the business that can figure that out. I don't think there's a person in any business that can figure it out, unless the computers get a little heavier.
You can look at what's happening up to this point. Rock music certainly is now more all-encompassing. It involves a far more intricate musical structure than it ever did. It spreads itself out far, more thinly than it ever did before. You'll find artists in every other phase of the business crossing the bridge and doing rock music. When you hear on the plane today, I saw a schedule of the in-flight music, and it had the London Symphony Orchestra playing pop music. That's incredible, So if anything, it's finally come of age. It's grown up to the point where you can have an R&B hit next to Frank Sinatra doing Gentle on My Mind, next to the London Symphony doing Bridge Over Troubled Water. It's very disseminated. In fact, that's a very healthy sign.
It could be possible that we're due for another, phenomenon or superstars because it seems like every decade something gigantic pops up on the music scene, The thing now is everybody trying to be hip and super hip. A particular artist gets his shot, may last possibly a year and a half, 2 years with good strength, and then it's not hip to dig him anymore. You got to move on to what's fresh, what's new. It's the way people are, no matter how good the artist might be. For instance, as big as Joe Cocker was several months ago, now it's Rod Stewart. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you're there, if you're right on top, you better go for all you can get, because you're going to be back down here in, say, another 5-6 months. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just one of those things.
Frankie, you and the group have attained almost every honor you possibly could, and yet you continue in the business. Why?
Being in show business is a way of life. And there are lots of things that, everybody lives with that hope of reaching the top. It doesn't really mean anything to reach the top. Because as I said, being in show business is a way of life. A performer is a person who has much to give. And if he loves doing what he's doing, and he loves his audience, he couldn't be happy unless he were out there giving. So it's not a question of how much more success I will achieve in my life. It's a question of how long I will be able to perform for audiences of any kind, at any place. And as long as I am able to do this, I will be, well, I think in my mind and my heart, that I will be fulfilling a part of me, which God created me to do.
Gentlemen, thank you for an exciting 6 hours. Again, our thanks to Mr. Steve Kirk and Mr. Pat Welch for their cooperation in the production of this documentary. The best of luck in the future, and instead of this being the end, we all hope this is just the beginning of the golden era of the Four Seasons.